We are live on YouTube. Higher. So now remove me as the host.
Okay, so now you have to make me the host. Then it will revoke your privileges. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Unaweza admit watu ama bado?
Yeah, you can. Let me admit them all. Yeah, they're joining.
Sawa. Okay, sawa.
Oh, he's here.
Okay. Good evening, guys. My name is Brian. I'll be your host for this session. Karibu sana on behalf of UIUX Nairobi. So I've just shared my screen here. Just go through who is actually UIUX Nairobi. For those of you guys who are new to this session, we are an online meetup who actually bringing together professionals in digital product design and UI/UX enthusiasts in Kenya. Here we serve to network, share ideas, and improve ourselves. So we meet up on every last Tuesday of the month. So that's the fourth Tuesday of every month at 5:30 p.m. And we usually meet online. So as you've seen, we have two speakers for today. But before that, we could probably start off with some house rules. So in case you have any questions, you can just raise your hand or you can just type it out in the chats. Or you can also tweet and just tag UIUX at UIUX Nairobi. You can also use the hashtag UIUX Nairobi. The second house rule is use respectful language as you're typing out your question. The third one is any question or comment, just keep them short and precise to allow everyone's questions to be answered, yeah? Yes, so those are just some of the house rules before we begin. So also I'd encourage you guys to just give us a follow on our socials. You can sub us on YouTube at UIUX Nairobi, and you can just give us a follow on LinkedIn and Twitter as well. If you'd like to reach us on email, that is at uiuxnairobi@gmail.com. So on all our handles, we are at UIUX Nairobi. Yeah. So I'll just take this opportunity, guys, to thank you and just welcome you to part 2 of Figma prototyping and building a user-oriented mobile app. So we'll start off with our first speaker. So this is Kenneth Madhari. So just a brief introduction for Ken. So Ken is an Android engineer at Kiosk. So Kiosk is a tech-led company that connects informal retailers and other similar outlets directly to fast-moving consumer good companies by communicating demand from retail outlets directly to FMCGs and their distributors and managing the delivery of goods to the sellers. So Ken has experience in Android development and some hands-on experience also with JavaScript. So he'll be taking us through his dev talk, and I will give him the floor to just start off his session. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. I hope you guys can hear me. Please do confirm if you can.
Yes, we can, Brian. Ken. Sorry.
All right, thank you. Sorry, last time I had issues with my internet, so yeah. Thanks, Brian, for the intro. My name is Kenneth Madhari. And let me just share my screen then. I think this will be easier. So, Brian, I think you have to configure something from your end for me to share my screen.
Sure. I'm giving you hosting rights. Just a sec. So to just try sharing your screen.
All right, just a sec. So that's so you should be seeing my screen right now.
Yes, we are.
All right, awesome, cool. Yep, so today's talk will be mainly focusing on building a user-oriented mobile application. So as Brian said, my name is Kenneth Madhari. I'm an Android engineer, and I've been building, or rather working on the Kiosk mobile Android application for close to like 2 years now, slightly close to 2 years. And yeah, so about me, I work at Kiosk Digital Services. Brian gave a really good explanation on what we mainly do. And yeah, for the most part is we connect the small scale retailers, or in simple terms, the local lookers to suppliers, hence improving business using our technology. And my tech stack, what I usually do work on a day-to-day basis is Android. I use Kotlin to build Android applications. I rarely do backend stuff, but if I want something from backend, I use Firebase. I do work on something called, I do work with Apollo GraphQL currently. And so last month, I kind of ventured into machine learning, and I'm sort of building a side project on that. So hopefully before the year ends, that will be completed. And yeah, also to add on, I love working on open source projects, mostly some of which are Android related. So it's something I've been doing for like 2 months, and so far so good, yeah. And the last thing about me is I usually love sharing memes. Whenever I'm not coding, I'm on my phone or TikTok, just trying to catch something funny. A small intro on what we usually mean when we talk about user-oriented mobile application. So first and foremost, like this is an application that simply meets the user's needs, yeah? So an instance is a user just wants a simple application that maybe let's a simple to-do list application, yeah? So if you build an app that does that and you present it to the user and they like it, then that's a mobile app that has met the user's requirements, hence becoming, efficient for them. So also the app in this case, as you're building it, as you're working on it, you should make sure that it has a really good user experience. So by that, I mean, the users should really have an easy time navigating in your app, yeah? By that, like from the time they open your app to the time they stop using your application, that whole process should be very seamless. Yeah, and also as you're building your mobile application for it to be user-oriented, one key thing that contributes to its success is how you consider your users' feedback here. So an instance is, let's say, you've built an app, you're now deploying it to your users, yeah? So you might hear complaints that maybe the app is crashing a lot or maybe it's too slow. So if you take that feedback and you work on improving that, then your app eventually becomes user-oriented and hence making it a bit more successful, yeah? So yeah, one thing that I would like us to note is that you should more often or rather frequently let your users sort of guide you in how you're building your application, yeah? Because for the most part, if you're working on something, let's say like, it can also be a web application, yeah? So when you're working on this particular product, your main aim is to solve a problem that you've seen. So that problem usually comes, rather it's the user that experiences that problem. And for you to solve that problem, you kind of have to understand where this is coming from so that you can build something that's very efficient for them and solves their problems, yeah? So yeah, things to consider when you're building a user-oriented mobile application. So one factor, it's like the attributes of your users. So by that, there's some specific attributes. Like one key factor nowadays is the age group. So we have young users and we have old users. So nowadays, like if you check the current trends, mostly here in Kenya, you'd find that like the younger generation are a bit more active in like TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, and similar applications. Whereas you'd find that, let's say like the older generation, most of them are really not into like the TikTok stuff, but I'd say you might find them, I'm thinking of an application. I want to say Facebook, but it's a bit controversial, yeah. So yeah, the age group really matters when you are considering users, and the other factor is their mobile devices. So users will find that your users have different types of mobile devices. Some are fast, some are slow. Some come from different brands, different platforms. So as you're building an application, you should consider such factors, yeah? And I think we talked about this one previously. Their needs, as you're building an application, you should factor in whether you are really solving their problem or whatever you're working on really solves or rather will make an impact to them, to your users, yeah? And also, the other thing that you should consider in your users is their time and rather the amount of time they spend in your app. So maybe like when you consider things like the banking apps, maybe mostly apps that deal in payments. So you as the user, ideally you'd like a situation whereby it's easy for you to log in, you enter your details, you enter the amount you want to pay, enter your password, and you've made your payment here. So if you're building such a similar application, you should make sure that the time spent for your user to implement that process should be as minimal as possible. Avoid making so much, what do you call it? Just make it as seamless as you can, yeah, in your process of building the application, yeah. So the other factor was the design. So nowadays you'd find that for the most common application, for this case, I'd use Instagram. I'd find that the design is quite simple. It's very minimalistic. There's really not much going on apart from the fact that it really aims for a simple user experience, yeah. So the other thing is that your users should have an easy time while using your mobile app. So the colors that you choose to use should be not too shouting really, but also depends on your company's brand, on what you want to really communicate to your users. But for the most part, to get started, aim for a very simple design. Then maybe as things grow or progress, you can start thinking of ways on how to like make your UI a bit more dynamic, so to say. Yeah, also, when you're coming up with your design, make sure that for each process before a user implements a task, let's say your user wants to make a payment. I think this is more of a common case to everyone. So that whole process, rather the designs in between that whole process should be very simple one and also very short. I really don't want to spend a lot of time trying to navigate in between the app so as to make a payment, yeah? So yeah, when you're coming up with a design, I guess those 3 points really matter on that. And yeah, so that factor to consider is the platform support. So coming from a mobile point of view, we usually have 2 platforms, that's Android and iOS. So for instance, I guess in Africa, we'd find that the large population is mainly comprised of Android users. Well, I guess due to most guys can't really afford the iPhones, so that's why we have a lot of Androids in the market. So as you're building an application, do consider that, but also there are some situations whereby you'll want to like have an application that considers both platforms. So me, coming from an Android point of view, we have something called KMM, that's Kotlin multi-platform. So it's a framework that enables us to build both an application that's supported in the Android and iOS environment. So yeah. The other factor was the response time. So if you're going to build a proper user-oriented mobile app, one thing to consider is, by response time, I mean how fast your app is. Like how fast does your app take to fetch images, to display images, or rather to display other information to your users. So ideally, this should take between 3 or 5 seconds. And by like, in this case, when I say 5 seconds, that's like 5 seconds on a bad day when the network is really not that nice. So, and I'm sure no one really likes a slow application. If your app is really fast, then chances of you getting more users are really higher. And we usually have this error called application not responding error. I kind of guess most people have experienced this. It's a situation whereby you're trying to fetch images or other information from the cloud, but it takes time, so your app crashes. And if your app does this, then that's not really a good show for you. Hence, you'll end up losing users. Yeah. So the other part that this is more of a developer point of view on how we aim to improve the user experience of users. That's by testing our features. So before we deploy, let's say if we have a new feature that we want to release to our users. So before that's done, a good practice that we usually do is we test the features, yeah? So we have things called unit tests. we usually use that to test our code to make sure that the code that we are writing is really good and it doesn't introduce any bugs, hence making sure that the app is deployed successfully to our users. And as we're testing our features, for the most part, a good practice is to consider the edge cases. So that typically means situations that are not very common, but when they happen, they might cause crashes in the app. Like an instance, like let's say you want the user to maybe enter their emails, yeah? So there's a specific way that users should enter their emails, like the typical, like let's say your name is John at gmail.com. So some users might miss that format and you kind of want to get that scenario. So when you're testing your application, do consider such factors. And yeah, so yeah, personally, I'm more of a really, I'm not a big fan of the applications that have like, let's say close to 20 features inside them. So an ideal situation when you're building a user-oriented mobile app, let's say you have this application that's basically sells food to your users. It's something I've just come up with. So in that application, so when you deploy it, the best practice is to first ensure that that feature actually works, that your app can sell food to your users, yeah? So, and if you're gonna add another feature to it, so since you're selling food, I guess the other feature that's nice to have is maybe you'd like to integrate payments to it, let's say M-Pesa, PesaPal or whatever. So if you're going to add a feature on top of that, make sure that that feature supplements the main feature. So in this case, the main feature was the app selling food to users, and a supplement feature is the app being able to make payments via M-Pesa or any other payment method. So there are some situations you'd find really bad scenarios where you have an application. Like in this case, let's say your app sells food to users. So a bad practice, I'd say, is maybe adding another feature that has nothing to do with your app selling food. Maybe on top of that, you have another feature that maybe you're selling, or not even selling, I'd say, how can I put this? I'm trying to guess of a feature here. Anyway, I'd say maybe like you're integrating that app with something like YouTube, maybe a video streaming platform. That wouldn't make sense because there isn't a correlation there. Yeah, and so the other thing to consider is when you're deploying features, at least deploy one or two features at a time. So in this situation, the main feature that we talked about was selling food to users. So if you're rolling out your application, or if you're adding a feature to your already existing application, take your users a bit slow. Don't force them with like 5 new features at once. And the benefit of this is that as the team behind the app, from the design team, engineers, products, whatever, you can track how that feature that has been released has impacted the users, the benefits it brings, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, that's the main benefit of making your app as minimal as possible and as seamless, just make it as simple as you can. And I guess that's it for the things to consider when you're building a user-oriented mobile application. So any questions?
Okay, great, thanks. Probably we'll just go to Wayua. Any questions trickling in on the chats? Guys, I encourage you to just post your questions so that our speaker can be able to answer them. Thank you.
Okay, hi, Kenneth. So we have a question from the chat, and it's from Kinsero Aiko. She asks, how do you iterate a lovable design?
How do I iterate a lovable design? By that, does he mean, okay, let me try to reframe the question so that we are on the same page. So does he mean like you have a design and you want to build on top of it so as to come up with a really good design for your users?
Maybe we can ask Akio
Yes.
to clarify.
Yeah, I've seen his reply on the chat.
Okay.
So to answer Akio, I'd say the best thing to do is first just start with a simple design, like let's say if you have a simple form, start with it, release it to your users, then get as much feedback as you can, be as engageful as you can. Maybe give them like 2 or 3 months down the line so as to like have a proper feel on how they feel about your design. Then I guess from that point, you can now start iterating on having a really good design. So I hope that answers you.
Nice. Let me take over from where you are. There was also another question. How do you balance between deploying minimal features and meeting user needs? That's one question. And I also have a personal question. How do you collaborate with UX designers? So question one, how do you balance between deploying minimal features and meeting user needs?
I guess having a roadmap is very important. Being a situation whereby first understand your users' requirements, what they really need, then set a plan. Like let's say 2 months down the line, I want to improve my UI, or 2 months down the line, I want to make sure that the response time of my application is really good. Yeah. So it's really just about how you organize your schedule and your plan. So once you know what your users want, it will be easy for you to make deployments seamless as you can. So yeah.
And how do you collaborate with designers? What tools do you use? Or do you work with designers in the first place?
Yes. So in a given situation, when you're working with this, let's say like in a given tech team. So a tech team, for the most part, it's comprised of designers, the devs, the engineers, the managers, guys from products, etc. So how we collaborate. So I'd say the requirements are usually sourced from business or product. Then those requirements are kind of communicated to the guys on the design team. Then they create the mockups, the UI designs. Then now they send them to us, the engineers. We work on them. Then we deploy them. So I think that's kind of describes how we collaborate with designers. And the other question was what? The platforms we use to work with.
The tools you use to collab.
So I understand designers the designers for the most part use Figma. Well, I'm not a designer, but from what I've seen, designers use Figma, or there's another tool called, I think, Miro. I'm forgetting the name. So yeah, once the designer implements or designs the UIs, they send us like a link. Then through that link, we get the designs, then we implement them. So yeah, in a nutshell, like that's how we typically work with designers.
Cool. Okay, cool. Still on that question, how do you pick the design from Figma? Do you have any challenges? And I'm also seeing another question. When considering users and their background, age, etc., to inform the design decision, how do you ensure biases don't get in your way of making the app appealing to the user segment? And how are you deciding factors important to user segment in non-biased way? This is from Esther Kirubo. So in fact, ignore my question, answer. Yes.
Well, that was a really good question. Let's start from the top. So the first question was on what?
I think she's asking, how do you avoid bias from your own judgment versus what the user, using your own bias, like assuming what the user wants?
I guess,
Yeah.
okay, but good question. Because yeah, sometimes you can be biased. I mean, it happens sometimes, yeah. But I'd say taking users' feedback, like just sitting down and analyzing their feedback, will kind of eliminate biasness. Like, let's say, for example, if a user comes to you and they're like, "Hi, I like your application, but it's a bit slow on my phone, yeah." So in that situation, like, it's for you, the tech team, to have a sitting and come up with a solution for that. So, or rather, like, if the user comes to you and they're like, "I don't like the design, it's a bit too shouting, I don't like the colors," or whatever, I guess sticking to the user's feedback kind of dismisses you being biased. So yeah, I'd say that kind of helps there.
Cool. That's all. I think that's all. That's the time we have for Q&A.
All right. I'm seeing the other questions in the chat. Are there any questions? Are they mine? What's going on there?
Yeah, actually a lot from yours, because there's one, as a designer, do we need to worry about platform support, or what is this for? What that is for engineers?
So as
Or
designers, you need,
that is for
yes. So as designers, you actually do need to worry about platform support. A good example is, I'm sure most of you, rather all of us, have used WhatsApp, yeah? And you'll notice that the UI on Apple products, the iPhones, is very different from the UI on Android products, yeah? So if you're going to create mockups for both, for like the iOS app and the Android app to use, you should actually consider such factors. Like, we'd find that maybe like a button on an iPhone looks very different from a button on an Android phone. So yeah, to answer Mwangui, yeah, you should consider the platform support.
Cool. And then there was also one other question from Woki Njehu. How do you collect, process, and ensure execution of user research, since you mentioned getting feedback after the launch of each feature?
To be honest, I don't really get involved in that. I mean, usually a team is very structured, like a tech team. There's guys, there are guys who do that. I guess it's guys from product. So, and I really don't want to give Walking Jehu a wrong answer on that. So I'd say, me as a dev, I rely on like input from guys who do that. That's mainly guys from product. So yeah.
Correct. I'd say, okay, I'm saying correct because as a UX designer, it's actually more of the UX researcher to do that, or the designer to do that. And then now from the findings, now they bring it to the engineers. So,
yeah, but I'd say maybe if you're not in a situation where you have a guy who does that for you, usually in Play Store, you can check your ratings. You can check if you have a 5-star application, check the comment section. There's usually a section where your users can give you feedbacks there. And yeah.
cool. So Brian can take over.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ken, for that session. It was very insightful, and we've been able to just get some knowledge on building for the user, building user-oriented mobile applications. Yeah. So guys, we are going into the second session of for today. So we are going to have Michael Kitikai just take us through this session on Figma prototyping. Probably could just introduce him. So Michael Kitikai is a UX designer based here in Nairobi, Kenya. He's been a creative designer for more than 5 years and started out as a graphic designer, later transitioning into UI design. He has worked with notable startups such as Pangea, and he is a champion for accessibility design, as digital platforms should cater to all human beings with different needs. He has a website that you can check out his portfolio, and he's also business owner and founder of a clothing brand called Nairobi. Yeah, so Michael, you can take it away.
Yeah, right. Thanks. Yeah, guys, it's me again. Yeah, same voice, same person. Sorry, I hijacked Wayua's role, and because I didn't want that long silence. I don't know if I can share my screen. Can I? Let's see if I can. Yes, I have the rights. I have the rights to share my screen. So I want a confirmation from Brian. If you can see my screen, kindly let me know so that we can proceed.
Yes,
Good.
screen is visible.
Perfect. Wait, what is not happening? Good. So for this short period we have around 52 minutes. I want to go through all this triggers, the animation triggers, and how you can use them. So on our previous UX session, the prototyping, I was able to do a couple, like show you like tap trigger and the rest, but we didn't go through everything. So I thought this would be a great session for me to just go through everything else and make sure we don't leave things 50-50 or we don't do half-baked projects or sessions. Right, so I'm going to start with the drag. I know I mentioned it last time, but I'm going to talk about it today and how you can use it and what is it for. So the drag trigger, I'm going to draw here circle like before. Circle, that's a circle, very nice. I'm going to give it a color. Let's give it that color. Oh, by the way, I'm using a UI kit here, a low fidelity UI kit by Blue UI kit. So I'll share this link. So if you're wondering, I'm using it. It's a good UI kit to do your low fidelity. So I've duplicated the frame. It's basically the same frame, same shape, everything, same. Now I want to demonstrate how the tap trigger works. So I'm going to come on my prototype and take this circle, and I want this circle, when I tap on it and I drag it, ikuja hapa where this other circle is. And this is only possible if first they're identical, okay? And the second thing is they're named, the layers are the same. So I'm going to rename this layer, although they are identical. Let me rename it. Let me call it circle and call this other one circle. So I'll take this and then I'll drag it here. And then on the interaction details, I want to choose not on click, but on drag. So if I drag, I'm telling Figma, hey, this identical shape, when I drag it, I want it to go to this other frame that is identical to this first frame, okay? Sounds confusing, but you'll see. And then this other one, I want, when I drag it again, I want it to go to the position where the previous shape is. which is also identical to this other one. So again, change it to drag. Perfect. Now I'm going to name it this to drag and play it. Then I want to resize it, fit screen. Yes. Now watch what happens. Did you see that? So that is, in a nutshell, that's what drag does. Okay. If you really want to do it better, it's good to do it at linear. Remove all this easing. Don't use any of this so that it does not look unnatural, like it's bouncing. And then probably make it 800. And then this other one, linear, linear, and 800. Just a reminder, these settings here, this linear means that it's going to go with the same speed. So it's going to go from here to here, 800 milliseconds, okay? But if it's ease in, ease out, ease in means it's going to start slow, then as it's progressing, at the end, it will now catch up. It will catch up with the speed, okay? So we're not going to talk about this, but just wanted to point that out. So now watch what happens. No, it's now fluid, it's now natural. It's like I'm actually moving this object. So that's number one. The second one I want to talk about, is time after, okay? I didn't talk about this last time, so after delay, and this is one of the most useful, and it's amazing. You can do a lot with this effect. So what is it? So for this effect, for the sake of this demonstration, I'm going to use component, okay? So I'll take the circle and I'll duplicate, I'll duplicate it. And no, I won't duplicate it. I'll make it frame like that, okay? Make it a frame. And then I'm going to call this after delay frame. And then this frame, I'm going to convert into a component. And then I'm going to create a variant from that component. Okay, so this second variant, just like the drag or anything, I want it to change position. I want it to go here. Okay, so, and just to maybe add an effect, maybe let me change the color to that. Or let's retain it for this, to make this tutorial simple. Right, so so on the effect here, I'm going to put the after delay. So I'm not going to use drag while hovering, while pressing, all this. I'm going to use after delay. And what does after delay means? Simply means that after a certain period of time, I want this shape to change to this second shape. Okay, so what is the time? Hapa hivi ukiangalia, unlike these other ones, like unlike on click, you don't have the delay option. But if I add after delay, there's this text field here, which allows you to define how many or how long or how many milliseconds you want the animation to start. Okay. So I'm going to put 800 milliseconds is okay. And I want this one to be gentle, okay? So itatoka hapa after 800 milliseconds, it should move to this other one. Again, a quick reminder, Figma, when it comes to after delay, Figma measures its time with milliseconds, not even seconds. So it's milliseconds, and 1,000 milliseconds make 1 second. Okay, so if you want, let's say 1 second, you will put 1,000. Okay, so now I'm going to take this, copy it, and then paste it here. Okay, so let's paste it down, paste it. But let me remove it from my demo. Yes, so let's play it. Let's see how it works. Let's see if it will work. No, it has not worked. What has happened? After delay, 800 milliseconds, gentle. Yes, so it should work. It should work. Let me reload. And then as it's reloading, let me add another trigger. Once it gets to this second, this second variant, I want it, after delay, I want the how 800, okay, let's say 300 milliseconds, it goes back to the previous Nini. So let's see if it works now. No, let's make this 50. Copy. And sorry. Now, you see, I made an error and I just realized instead of copying the variant, I copied the circle. So I didn't see that. So copy the variant and the state variant and paste it here. Let's see if it works now. Hopefully it should work. Right, so you see what's happening. So after 800 milliseconds, it goes from left, then it goes right, left, right, left, right. Okay, so if we want to be a bit creative with it, we can even change the color to, let me put like black. So it's disappearing because the background color is black. So let's add, let me put a very shouting color, like a hot pink. Yes. Right. So that's what happens. After delay, it's just the exact same effect like others, but the only difference is you're not tapping or dragging or anything. Now, with that in mind, you can create things like this. This one here, I had made, this one should play actually. Reload. So you see, this is a loading, this is like a TikTok loading effect. This other one is like when a screen is loading. So let me add another effect here. I want it to be on click and I want it to be linear. And yeah, so if I click and I go back, but it loads. So you can use the after delay to create such things, such as loading effects, a lot of things, like the possibilities are endless. Great. Now let's look at another thing. I'm going to do away with that. I'm going to resize that screen. I'm going to draw another circle here. Circle. In fact, let me just use the previous one here. Copy and paste. And again, duplicate. And then the next thing we're going to use here is navigate to, swap to, no, we're going to use mouse enter. Actually, we talked about mouse enter, mouse leave, and all this one. So I've just remembered we did those. So there's no need to go back. But now here I have a real life example of where we can use such effects. I created here a prototype, low fidelity prototype of how different effects can be used in like a real life product or prototype. So this is a mock-up of like a landing page of a SaaS, okay? And with that, we're going to see different effects that you can use. Now, the first one is navigate to, okay? If I tap on this one, it's going to scroll. You see that? So when you're creating a landing page and it's just one page and you want people to utilize the top or the menu to navigate, you can use the navigate to or scroll to. So how do you do that? Here, down here, this navigate, the effect I used, let me in fact copy it, delete it. So I came here and I dragged the noodle to where I want the monitor to navigate to when it's tapped, okay? And the settings is on click, and it's going to scroll to, okay? And there's no animation. So then this here is offset, like unataka ionyeshe what part of the screen. Do you want it to show the full screen? Do you want it to show half of it? For the sake of this demo, I'll just keep it at 0. So again, if, okay, I have to minimize that page. To 1080, 1080. Nice. So if I tap again, how do I hide? So if I tap again, now it takes me down to where I was. So that's one. The other one, there is what we call a link, okay? You can actually share a link of a page. And how do you do that? Where was my, let me use, okay. Come here and type text link example. Okay, so maybe you're building a button and you want when a user taps on it, they log into a link. So when this is text, right? When you highlight it, on top here, there's a chain or like a link icon. You tap on it, now you can add your link. Okay, so I can add any link. I can add fast.com. Okay, so anytime someone taps on this, it will take them to a link. Now, in our case here, I've used the blue UI kit as the link to the page. Now I'm going to share this on the chat. If you're interested on this link to use this UI kit, it's a dope one, share it on the chat. So that's another way. Another one is using overlay, okay? So an overlay is, like the name suggests, is you are placing an object on top of another one. But the one you're placing it on top is a placeholder. It's not permanent, it's temporary. For example, you see this is a side menu. A side menu is an overlay. Another type of an overlay is a bottom sheet or a share sheet. It's also an overlay. So this is useful, like when you're creating menus, and when you tap on it, when you tap back, see, it's just placed on top, and you can utilize the close overlay or button. So how do you create it? So it's very simple. I had to make a different menu bar at the side, okay, different one, and then I had to link them. So how did I link them? This is the hamburger menu. If you look at it, I'm going to cancel it. So I created a different screen on the side, and I want this screen, when someone taps on it, like it slides on the left side. Okay, so is on top of our main product. It doesn't take us to a different product. So you take your connector noodles, unaziweka hapo, and then here is on click. Interaction here is on click, but the effect you want is open overlay. Okay, open overlay, which our overlay is this one. Then a quick hack is, a good thing is, for something like this menu, I've made sure that the height is the same size as the height of the web page, okay, or the screen size. So that haionyeshi half of it here, or it's not overlapping. Well, that could also be an effect. So on click, open overlay, the frame is this one, home screen. I mean, this one here, I'll call it menu. Let's go back. Now there are options here. There is tab when clicking outside. So I want this effect, I've enabled it so that if I open this overlay and someone taps outside the overlay, it closes. And I want to show you this effect. You see this here? If I tap outside, if I tap outside this overlay, here, anywhere else, it should close. So that's useful. Add background behind overlay. Yes, you're doing that so that you separate the main product, the overlay product with the background product, so that the overlay is more visible. And this, you can use this even with bottom sheet. And then here there are different effects. So do you want it to pop from the center? Okay. Do you want it to pop from the side? Do you want it to pop from the bottom center? In this case, from the top left. Nice. And then tunaipe a nice effect because we want a smooth effect. In this case, I'm going to use ease out. By the way, 90% of the time, if you're struggling with which effect to use, ease out works best. Ease out 300 is a sweet spot to try out. Yeah, so let's check it out. So tap, naona imetoka left ikakuja right, that's an error. So down here, I forgot to tell you guys, this is where you define the direction it should come from. So I will put it from left, right, from, yeah, left to right, yeah. This one is from top to bottom. If I do this, what happens? You see top, bottom, top. So you get the idea, but in this case, it's from left to right. Okay, so higher. Here's another thing. Very quick. Unaona hata this side, when I tap here, this is another example of an overlay that Figma is using. So you can see it's being used in real life. Even this one is an overlay. This one is an overlay. This one is an overlay. Now, another thing is when I tap on swap overlay, see, it changes from one overlay to another without closing. Okay. And that's useful if you don't want multiple effects. So that's very easy. I just came here and same settings, I just changed from open overlay to swap overlay. Now, another cool trick is you can create an X button, and this X button, anytime someone clicks on it, you can define it and say it will close the overlay. So if in this case, nikitap hapa, it closes the overlay. I hope that makes sense. Okay. By the way, this button can be used in other ways. You can use it as a back button if you want a permanent back button. Those guys who are designing for iOS, you know, there's always a back button that is by default. I think even Android has it at the bottom. So instead of linking every back button to a certain back button, you can just use this back button like that and like that. So let's look at another effect. Now here I have change to. Okay, so I'm going to tap here. I have an effect here called change to. Okay, what does that mean? It's the same thing I showed you last time. This object is going to change to a different object, not a different object, as the same object, but a different effect. In this case, I want you to look what happens. If I tap on it, see, it changed to subscribe. I tap again and subscribe. So what happened there? Let me tap on this. So two similar buttons, one written subscribe, dark mode, and then or it's disabled, and then this other one is light mode and it's enabled, and you give user feedback that you've tapped or you haven't tapped. Okay. And I want to show you another trick. When you're creating, you can also do something like this. Let me delete this. There are certain times you want, when the user clicks on it, it changes to a certain color, but then after they stop clicking on it, it's like hover effect, but tap. So I want that to while pressing. Okay. So while pressing, watch what happens. You see that I'm pressing and holding. When I release, goes back to the previous state, and I tap on it, it shows, it goes back. So you can use this effect to show and hide things, like you have to tap on this to see, or like that. Or let's say it's like password feature, and you want to hide you only want the user to see the password they've typed when they type on that eye icon. Okay, so you can use this. Another great use of this is if you're prototyping a keyboard and you want to simulate that someone tapped on this and then they tapped on this and this, you can use this one. So, when you tap return to instant, it will take me back to the frame that I was showing. So that's another cool hack about it. So let me scroll down. Now here is another interesting one. I want to navigate these photos, but I can't tap on them. Okay. So what I did is I used my keyboard on my computer to define what I want to tap next. So I'm going to tap the arrow, the right arrow, okay, the right arrow, and then again. So back with the left arrow, and then right arrow. So how did we do that? That is simple. We have 3 slides, okay? Now each slide is linked, okay? Now instead of me adding the tap, like here, like if click, because if I click here, watch what happens. You see, if I click, it will go back. So it will go to the next one, sorry. Instead of doing that, I told Figma, hey, I want, and people use their keyboard, I want them to use the right arrow keyboard, and then that right arrow is going to take me to this second slider, okay? And then on this second slider, when they also tap the right keyboard, I'm going to take them to that slider, okay? And then same thing goes back, back, back. You're probably asking yourself, how did I add this, the arrows? How did I make the action for the arrows or the trigger? It's simple. When you tap on this text field here, and you tap on any button on your keyboard, if I tapped F, it automatically assigns F as the trigger for the next effect, okay? So that happens like that. This one tunataka pia iende kwa hiyo ingine. Where is this? Okay, let me undo. Undo, 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 undo. Correct. Now it's perfect. Okay. So that's that. Now, what else? I think I've gone through the most design animations that I had left out the previous time. So now I should be taking Q&A. Anyone with questions? I know you guys have a lot of questions. This wasn't meant to be a long session, but I just wanted to highlight how you can use those triggers in your day-to-day prototyping or design. So Brian, are there any questions? Are there any other questions? Anyone?
Okay, so I think guys should start sending in their questions. For Wango is asking if it's possible to have more than one trigger on the same button.
Correct. Yes, it's possible, and I'm going to show you it is. So let's assume, where's my button? Where's that button? Perfect. So here's the thing. See, here we have two buttons. I want when someone hovers on this button, oh yes, I forgot one thing. Before I answer that, I didn't show you guys, there's also the hover effect, hover, which actually now answers this question. You see, this text here has two effects. When I hover on it, it changes color and slightly grows in size, as you can see, okay? And when I tap on it, it moves. You get, when I tap on it, it moves. So how do you do that? So let's in fact do this. Let's duplicate this. I want to make this same as subscribe. I want when someone hovers on this button, actually no, let me use the previous one. This one, let's use this one. So I want when someone hovers on this button, I want the color to change. Okay, I'm going to make this 0. Okay, I want it to change. Okay, that's a very light color. I want a very dark. Perfect. So I want when someone hovers on this, and maybe make this, yeah. It shows them, hey, you can actually tap on this, or you can actually subscribe. And then when they tap on it is when now they subscribe. So how do we do that? So I'm going to take my button here. I'm going to add it here, and I'm going to take this effect here. I'm going to say, while hovering, it should show me this. Okay. In fact, yeah, let's make that. And then I want, while hovering at that state, I want, when you tap on that hovered button, I want you to change it to subscribed. So it's like a YouTube subscription. Right, so let's see if it works. So this is the button. Nime hover, I haven't tapped on it, hover, and then when I tap, it shows subscribe. So to answer your question, yes, you can have multiple effects on one button. However, there's a precaution. the fact that nime add here on click, when I click. Now, if I add another here, if I add another here, if I add another effect here, that's, if I add, let's say if I add here, if I add it to on click, it will not work because already there's a click effect previously. Okay, so if I add it, if I add another effect on this button here, it will mess up with Figma. So if you want to add a click or you want to add an effect, just add it. If you have multiple effects, just to be on the safe side, add them on the variant. So I could say, okay, if someone now clicks on this subscribe button, they click on this subscribe button, I want them to be taken to, let's see if it will work. I want them to be taken, it's the same thing. Yeah, I want them to open overlay. Okay, so move in, right? So watch what happens. Height 1080, right? So hover, then click subscribe. Right now, if I click again on this subscribe, brings me the pop-up. Correct. Any other question?
Yes, we also have a question from Chantel. She asks if it's possible for overlays to be longer height than the main frame.
Is it possible for overlays to be longer height than the main frame? So let's try it out. Is it possible? Let's make this a long as, okay, that's long one. And I want it to stay, okay, sorry. I want this to stay on top. By the way, you can define where you want it to stay here. If I want it to stay on top, bottom, there, but let's use this. So let's say, let's make it long. See, it's already showing, but now it's showing, it's literally showing. So yes, it can, but there's a trick. The fact that this is a long overlay and it's longer than this one is supposed to be, the height is here. Unaona sasa, what happens? It's overflowing huko chini. I wish you saw, but you can't see it. But I mean, I wish you see it, but you can't because the frame is clipping it. So yes, it's possible, but best practice is to keep it on the same frame size. But now that you've asked, I don't know if I have that effect. Yes, here. You see, when you're designing a bottom sheet or a bottom navigation, most of the time, like if you look at Instagram comments, TikTok comments, it's usually a bottom sheet, okay? And it's usually half the screen size of the page. So you can use half. In this case, let's see which one goes here. If I tap play, so let me size it to the actual size. Oh, sorry. So you see, it's showing me half of the screen size. Now, this could be the comment section. This could be like more details. This could be an error message. So it could go half or full. I hope I answered you, Chantel. Yes, she said thanks. Any other question? If no other question, then I guess we can end. I can end my presentation. Any question? Any question going once? Any question going twice? for the last time, no question. So thank you guys for this session. I've really appreciated that we've done 2 sessions. I didn't want us to do the previous one I felt like I left you guys hanging, and I did it on a rush because I reviewed it, Nikona. There are a lot of key areas I left out. So I didn't want to leave you guys hanging. So that's why I did this part 2. Of course, the prototyping feature on Figma is wide. Okay, there are a lot of features that we haven't talked about. Okay, and they're very useful. Like for instance, this feature here, there's I don't know if I added it here. Let me see if I did. No, I didn't. But there's, oh, it's here. You see, there's like a scroll feature here. Let me close. There's a scroll effect. So this is not even a slider. This is a, you can use, oh, it's a slider. You can use it as a slider, or you can use it to hide items from left to right and all that. So because of time, I can't cover everything, but I hope I've covered the major topics that are effective to you guys. And with that, you can start learning. That said, I'm also preparing an advanced, like a detailed prototyping course where we go in deep how you can use everything and nitty-gritty. I'm thinking of doing like more than 20 hours of explaining certain features on Figma and how you can use them with your product. And you can use them to test with your users and all that. So if that sounds like something you're interested in and if you want to, I'm going to share a link on the chat right now after I finish screen sharing, and then you can RSVP or register. But that's it. That's all from me. I'm taking it back to Brian.
Okay, great. Thanks. I hope you guys have learned a lot from this session, starting from 5:30 till now. Yes, there'll be a recording available on YouTube. Just go to our channel, UIUX Nairobi, and you'll be able to see that there. I'd just like to thank the speakers. I also like to thank you all for just being patient and just being attentive and making this very interactive. And yeah, with that, all great things come to an end. I'd just like to thank you once again. Make sure to just copy the links that are on the chat right now. And yes, and just have a lovely rest of the evening.
Before we end the call, our next session, our next month session, remember it's on the last week of every month on Tuesday. So the next one will be, I think 27th. Yes, it will be on 27th. So just keep yourself ready. Sawa, that's all from me, Brian.
Okay, great, thanks. Yeah, so just bookmark that, or just take a note of that on your calendar. June 27th, that's our next event. Okay, thank you.